My name is Finlay MacDonald. I'm Head of Piping Studies here at the National Piping Centre in Glasgow, and our purpose really is to promote the study and the performance and the research and all aspects of Scottish Highland piping, but also putting it in context with the wider world of traditional music. The National Piping Centre has been open for 15 years now, and we have built up our student base. We teach people from pretty much every country in the world. We run a degree course, we run Piping Live, Glasgow International Piping Festival, and basically we have a great time here teaching and listening and performing with the pipes. In my opinion, piping is absolute paramount and of paramount importance to Scottish culture. If we go back through history, all the significant changes or developments in Scottish history have involved pipes or pipe music or some form of traditional music in very definite ways. The interesting thing now is that there's this young person's folk or traditional music scene which pipers are very much a part of, and this is exciting new music. This isn't always looking back the way historically, we're looking forward. We're looking at taking this instrument which has got great history and great roots, but moving it into current musical trends and crossover music with different artists is what's making the pipes one of the most popular instruments in Scotland today. And we're now producing musicians who are open-minded and developmental, whilst still understanding and respecting the whole traditional side of our music. Okay, so bagpipes, as I said, are fairly simple in their makeup. If I play you this on its own, this is the chanter, the melodic part of the instrument. We only have 9 notes, so again I can let you hear what this sounds like independently of the drone. So that's our chanter sound, and that sound comes from this reed vibrating when the right amount of air is passing through it, and because it's shaped conically it projects the sound very well. So that's the loudest part of the pipes, and this goes into the stock here, which just provides a seal between the bag and the instrument. And then our drones here, I can let you see and hear what this sounds like independently. This is just a single bladed reed here, and this section is movable for tuning purposes. So again, on its own it doesn't sound like much. So all these things together, with the steady blowing and the chanter and the drones, when they're all going together, they should sound something like this. Scotland, welcome to our life.
My name is Hazel Campbell, and I'm speaking from my studio in Galloway. This wonderful studio started life as a stable and was converted 14 years ago into a wonderful artist's painting area where I both work and run teaching courses. I started painting as a child and have painted ever since. I seem to have quite a lot of children and got a lot of encouragement from my husband to keep on painting. So once the children had flown the nest, the painting was there, and I've painted virtually full-time ever since. The Galloway landscape to me is so stimulating because of its natural beauty. I love the villages in particular. We're fortunate in having a lot of attractive little villages in this area that haven't had a lot of new builds tacked onto the side of them, and those have formed the basis of a lot of the work I do. I have been influenced a lot obviously oil, but my basic love is watercolour, and I work mostly in watercolour, gouache, charcoal, crayon, anything that is water-based. And this seems to suit the Galloway landscape particularly well, and all its weather variations that we have so many of. We have a lot of artists coming to this area on holiday for quite obvious reasons, the wonderful countryside, and of course we're very close to Kirkcudbright, the artists' town. But the whole area is so suited to painting classes and going to the beach and painting fields. Scotland has inspired many artists, and particularly people have come to Galloway for years. But we also have a tradition of an open studios event where people come from all over the country to see our many studios and attractions in the middle of summer. I got started in painting seriously 40 years ago when I had the good fortune of going to painting classes with Archie Sutter-Watt, who was a pupil of Edinburgh School of Art, and he was running courses and I went to them for 30 years and he taught me all I know, but he gave me the encouragement and the enthusiasm to see so much beauty in this area where we live, and he's been the one who has taught me everything. I paint almost full-time, but when I'm not painting I'm teaching summer schools and winter classes to anyone who's interested to come along. If the weather isn't suitable for painting outside, I'm more than happy to paint from a window. The frame itself is rather an interesting compositional aspect of the painting, and such beautiful views out of it, both summer and winter. Scotland, welcome to our life.
I am Donald John Mackay, living here at Luskentide on the island of Harris. Weaving has been here for many generations, if not centuries, and that was typical of every craft on these islands. I started weaving because my father was a weaver, so as a family we just grew up with weaving, so it felt quite natural for me when I left school to take up weaving. The inspiration behind what I do I get mostly from my surrounding area of where I live, because if you look at my colour combinations and what I have, most of it you'll see the environment, the countryside round about. To produce Harris tweed, first of all you need sheep, and it's certain breeds of sheep that their wool is used for the Harris tweed. After that it is quite a lengthy process. The wool is dyed, carded, spun, and now in Harris tweed there's very few solid colours, if any. So because each thread is made up of so many different colours, it's very vibrant, and hence you get nice combinations of colours within the tweed. Now I'm here using what is called the Hattersley domestic loom. These looms are no longer made, so most of the Harris tweed now that is produced is made on the double width loom, which is 150 centimeters wide. Weaving on these looms to do a meter will take me about, say, 20 minutes, but for that I have to prepare it, set it up, and that is time consuming. I would give myself a week to do 100 meters, but that includes preparing it, fetching the yarn, preparing it, warping it, setting it up in the loom and weaving it. The market for Harris tweed nowadays is global, and the demand is very high at the moment, because Harris tweed unlike perhaps 30 years ago, has got so many end uses. Though at one time it was for ladies and gents clothing, but now the end uses of Harris tweed are just endless. So the Harris tweed industry plays a very, very big part, an important part in the lives of the people of these islands. Scotland, welcome to our life.
My name's Alistair Macaulay. I am half of the Timber Species Design Studio based in Glasgow, and we're now in our first shop in Great Western Road in Glasgow. Timber Species is a design-led manufacturing business. We are based here in Glasgow, and we produce, our core business is hand-printed fabrics and wallpapers. It was a great place to do this, you know, Glasgow really supports creativity and culture. I mean, there's far more going on here than anyone even here acknowledges. Never mind abroad. You know, there's incredible TV and media going on here, and theatre, and you know, sort of web design companies, product design companies, graphics. You know, who are all doing global stuff. Interior design companies here who are doing work in Chicago and the Bahamas, and, you know, for hotels and stuff. It's you know, it's in terms of a hub. It's a real little nucleus, and it's really, really high powered. Well, I suppose you have here is one of the ones we're more famous for is our Glasgow toile, which is based on the classic 17th century toiles, which were manufactured, I suppose, in France, and it shows scenes of contemporary Glasgow. And it's using a technique of getting as much, we try to keep it as traditional as possible, using like two colours, two screens, and the overlaying of various parts of the drawing to make it look as close to a toile as possible. And you can see that there has an architectural aspect to it. You know, you have the science centre, you know, over here, the Norman Foster Science Centre and the Armadillo, and you have the Charles Rennie Mackintosh Queen's Cross Church, which is a lesser known Mackintosh. I mean, Glasgow is known for its Mackintosh, but this is a lesser known building. And then in between this you have these high-rise urban dwellings, you know, with this cheap food store in the middle. So you have this vista of architecture from way back to contemporary. So, you know, we enjoy taking these kind of classic traditional textile motifs and styles and just kind of changing them, sort of subversing them slightly. You know, you can see that with a lot of our sort of larger florals or the insects. You know, like where you have the thistle, for example. I mean, a classic Scottish icon, but you know, it's quite kind of brutal. It's quite spiky and it's quite edgy, and you know, it's one of our better sellers. You know, because people like the fact that it nods to sort of Scottishness and traditional aspects to it, but the fact that it's got a larger scale and it's drawn kind of the way it is, you know, quite kind of dangerous, and it is a bit of a weed as well. So you're kind of glorifying this aspect to it. And you have the Napoleon bee, which is just a classic, you know, the classic Napoleonic bee, and it's kind of as much detail as we can, so as it still looks like an old sort of hand printed piece. Scotland, welcome to our life.
What my jewellery is about is designed and made in Scotland in the Orkney Islands actually, jewellery. It's about reflecting the landscape. Inspiration all comes from round about me, but the whole of Scotland is brilliant. Maytow was one of my original chambers that I looked at, and this particular piece is circular like Maytow, and the Vikings broke in through a hole in the top, and they were 12th century I think, and they broke in through a hole in the top and they scratched runes round the wall. I suppose it was an early form of graffiti, and I thought this was a nice idea for a design. So I took the round shape of Maytow, gave it a nice curved shape, and made my own message in runes, which says reflecting times past and present. And this is what I like to do. I like to take something that's very traditional, like the runic writing in Maytow, and turn them into a contemporary piece of design. The colour is actually enamel, and this is hand done. Everything is made in my workshop in the Orkney Islands, and we hand enamel and hand finish each piece individually. I'm very much guided by how I feel on a day, and sometimes you know, I walk along a beach, and the latest collection has been inspired by just a walk along the beach with wild grasses flowing in the wind, and it's called Wild Grasses. It's got a bright enamel colours, which we've called Meadow, and we hope to take out another collection in the new year called Staffa. This says real love transcends time in runes, and you know, this ring here says dreams of everlasting love all the way around it. So it's quite a sort of romantic range, with this one saying reflecting times past and present in runes. We do lots of special occasions pieces like engagement rings and wedding rings, and this is a matching set in 18 karat gold, enamelled in a nice ocean coloured enamel. The ripple shape takes the enamel, and then we've got the constellation of tiny diamonds set all along the band ring. So we have a range of pieces that can be made in silver, but it can also be made with gold and diamonds.
Hi, my name's Howie Nicholsby. I'm the creator and designer of 21st Century Kilts, which is the modern evolution of the kilt. I've been independent in my own store for 3 years, created 21st Century Kilts when I was 18 within my family's traditional kilt business, Geoffrey Taylor. My kilts are very different. Right from the way they sit on the body, they're lower on the hip, so they're not as high and traditional as a military kilt and what you see most of the time worn with Prince Charlies and by pipe bands. The other place where they're a bit different is they have inbuilt pockets on the back and on the inside, the option of detachable pockets. We've even done cycling kilts with reflective tapes in the pleats. So every kilt is different and individual and mainly made to measure, so with still that special tailoring bespokeness that a kilt should have. It shouldn't just be some factory produced thing off the peg, which there is the option of. A kilt should be made to measure and something that is a lifetime purchase. A lot of my clients have an idea of what they're looking for, particularly say something like pinstripe kilts, which has become very popular. If a man's looking for a pinstripe kilt suit, he's coming to me, he knows what he's looking for, and we do a lot of English, British, suiting fabrics, you know, like Savile Row. So I mean, we're making kilt outfits that to the average eye, when the person's walking down the street and you don't see the legs, you know, it looks like he's wearing a normal suit, or at a function when he's sitting down. So it's about making the kilt much more subtle again, and much more an everyday piece of a man's wardrobe, but it doesn't have to be screaming Scotland as an identity, but it is actually a piece of clothing that any man from anywhere can wear. A kilt doesn't have to be tartan, but it can still be masculine and still Scottish, still a true identity to our nationality, but it takes away the restriction that it's got to be a family tartan or that people consider a dress piece of clothing. You know, I'm sitting here in black denim silk, and you know, I have a pool personally of about 30 kilts. Probably 6 or 7 of them are different denims. You know, when you start wearing a kilt every day, it does become addictive, and you do want choice. So I would say where 21st century kilts is very important to the movement of the kilt being in everyday clothing is that my customers on average have more than 3 kilts. You know, their first kilt might not have been from me, but once they have more than 1 kilt in their wardrobe, they're able to start wearing it more to more events. People aren't like, oh, it's the same kilt all the time. You know, and you can really have a lot of fun with it and really open up your social circle. You know, the kilt's a massive, incredible icebreaker. You know, wherever you are, if you're on your own in a bar or traveling, people will come up and talk to you. You know, it's a real focal point for people from all around the world. Now, I've always used the tagline radical evolution, meaning that we're evolving something but taking it back to its original roots and radicalizing it by saying, yeah, 300-400 years ago, guys slept in this, farmed in it, wore it every day. 400 years later, let's do that again. Let's party in a kilt, let's work in a kilt, let's socialise in one. You know, not just Scots. It's about Scots embracing other people and other cultures, wanting to adopt a kilt. It's great fun. You want something that's class, we are the Porsche of the kilt world. Scotland, welcome to our life.
My name is Sarah Raffle and I'm director here at Brazen Studios, which is a design and jewellery studio for some of the most exciting UK jewellers and our on-site workshops for our bespoke service. Brazen I opened in 2004. After graduating I wasn't particularly sure where I wanted to go within the jewellery industry, but I'd gone through a process at the School of Art which really opened my ideas up to business. And for me at that point in time, there wasn't really an exciting showcase for new or current jewellery designers. So we set up studios which are through the wall and you can actually soak up a lot of the sounds and the smells that are coming through there, and a retail area so that we can actually bring more exciting jewellery to a customer base that maybe didn't know it existed before then. Obviously, working with jewellery, we've got a whole palette of colours to work with. We've got gemstones, we've got all the different alloys, but nowadays we've got so many more materials at our disposal, and I think even just what Scotland offers in terms of its natural products, its woods, its landscapes, always offer up inspiration, palettes and shapes to work with. We're really looking at things like the Scottish thistle, trying to interpret the colour and the form, but in a way that was far more contemporary. And so there's often times we look back to perhaps our nature or our history for things like that. Glasgow's a great city. I came here to Glasgow in the City of Culture and Design in 1999, and I've been here ever since. I'm fortunate to have travelled a lot of Scotland with my parents, but there's something about Glasgow that's kept me here. There's something about the nightlife and the people. I don't know if it's got something to do with our water over this side, but there's an awful lot to see and do about within Glasgow. So this is in brief, the process that we will take customers through when we're designing and building a bespoke piece of jewellery, it's very popular with our engagement market. We start off, we ask the customers to select a range of images, and I ask them to try not select pieces of jewellery specifically. I ask them to select perhaps architecture or patterns, motifs, things that appeal to them, and tell me a little bit more about their style. And from that, there might just be a couple of elements that kind of, you know, are picked out. And in this particular case, this sort of ironwork, this Art Nouveau ironwork, became quite an important feature. I think the fact that we do offer quite a range of exclusive jewellery collections, specific designers that people are collecting or people are looking out for. But I think more importantly, the sentimentality behind jewellery and the way it's presented as a gift or something that's actually held for a very long time. I think that combined with the uniqueness or the unusualness of some of the designs and processes involved is a big draw to people of all ages. But of course they've got a very discerning eye if they come and shop here. Scotland, welcome to our life.
My name is Fraser Anderson, and I started my business 7 years ago when I worked for a craftsman in Orkney. So I started up my own business then. I was fully trained as a cabinet maker, and I basically just started up myself, and it was a bit of a shock when I was only 19 at the time, but I've not looked back at it since. Traditionally, the chairs were made from driftwood as there was no timber sources in Orkney. They were originally known as the poor man's chair because they couldn't afford furniture from the mainland, so they used driftwood from the shore and straw from the local fields. They would always, basically the design behind it was the straw was to keep the cold drafts out and the warmth from the peat fires in. And of course they had a lumbar support in the back of the chairs, and this was to provide them with support, but also the chairs were used daily. They weren't a piece that was just a showpiece, they were actually used as a functional item. And I mean, as far as keeping the craft going, the tradition, it goes back hundreds and hundreds of years. Nobody knows how far back it actually does date. They first got made commercial in the early 1890s, but anything before that is a traditional Orkney chair. And you'll see a lot of old ones about nowadays, and they're still in very good condition. But it's great to keep the tradition going. I mean, as far as the backs go for the chairs, there's no chigs, no templates. It's all done purely by look of the eye and the feel for it, and that's exactly the same way as what I suppose my ancestors would have made them hundreds and hundreds of years ago. A standard chair like this one here will take 100 hours to make from start to finish. So it's quite time consuming, but then if you go into the larger items, for instance the hooded chairs, you're pushing on about 150 hours on that chair. So it's a lot of time involved in it, and I'll make anything between 25 and 30 chairs a year, and that's just from, make smaller items besides, but mainly the chairs is about that sort of number. I've got 3 older sisters, and my nieces and nephews, I've made them all their own first Orkney chair for the first Christmas. And of course an Orkney chair will last 100 years, so they're, basically it will be in their family for years and years to come. And I mean, if well made, which my ones are, they'll last for hundreds and hundreds of years. Scotland, welcome to our life.
Hello, I'm Kath Mainland, the Chief Executive of the Edinburgh Festival Fringe, and I'm here in Edinburgh's Festival Theatre. Scotland is a small but truly creative nation, and I think our heritage, our traditional arts, and the wonderful creativity of our people is what makes it such a leading creative nation. Scotland and its festivals truly attract world-class renowned artists from every art form from all over the world. At the festivals last year, over 30 different countries around the world were represented in the programmes of Edinburgh's festival and really represent talent at the top of its game. The Edinburgh Festival Fringe is the largest arts festival in the world and is completely open access, which means that anyone who wants to be part of it, anyone with a creative vision, can be part of this extraordinary explosion of culture that invades Edinburgh every August. So the Edinburgh Festival Fringe has artists not just from all over the world, but from all ranges of their careers. So we have very, very well-known artists who are taking part in the festival alongside completely unknown artists. And so we have John Malkovich last year handing out flyers on the historic Royal Mile alongside student companies from Scotland, which is just a wonderful thing. Scotland is a small nation but has always been a very creative nation. Maybe it's the Kilt in us, but we have wonderful traditional arts, from storytelling and ceilidhs and traditional music through to wonderful national companies in opera and ballet. And the great thing about the festivals is that they bring this an amazing international aspect to Scottish artists who get to invent the next generation of contemporary culture for the nation. The impact of the Edinburgh Festivals, of course, isn't just in Edinburgh, but impacts throughout the rest of Scotland, the UK and internationally. So Scottish companies, such as the National Theatre of Scotland, Scottish Opera and Scottish Ballet, don't just present their work at the festivals, but throughout the rest of Scotland, the UK and indeed all over the world. The Fringe takes place in all sorts of extraordinary places, from wonderful theatre such as this to very small site-specific theatres and everything in between. And each year over 2,500 companies will come from over 30 countries around the world to show off their wares to the world, and the audience will come from all over the world to see them. In 2012, the year of Creative Scotland, London will be hosting the Olympic Games and welcoming the best sporting talent from all around the world. And we in Edinburgh are looking forward to welcoming the absolute best creative and cultural talent from all over the world, and looking forward to welcoming the world to Edinburgh. Scotland, welcome to our life.